Business is more than grinding to get it done. It's people, process, and payroll done right. It's protecting your team, leveraging every penny out of every dollar to build and grow. From HR to insurance, from strategy to scale. We give you the playbook so you don't have to figure it out the hard way. This is the PEO Playbook, hosted by Chad Philly with Staff Brokers Inc. Get valuable insights and learn to grow your team without HR headaches. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to this episode of the PEO Playbook podcast, PEOplaybook.com. I'm Chad Philly with Staff Brokers here with Staff Brokers CEO Marty Gray. We're getting into all things PEO and how they help small business owners focus on the things that make them money rather than all the headaches tied into payroll, work comp, taxes, compliance, risk management, etc. Today, we're going to dive a little bit into, I guess we can call it OSHA administration. It's not really OSHA administration, but just some of the safety and risk management related things that PEOs stay on top of to help business owners out.
Yeah, I was thinking about the compliance side of it and the work comp underwriting of it. Right from the very beginning, when we get a client who's looking to get a proposal for our services, if they're in a risk industry, we're immediately, as part of underwriting, looking at their websites, looking at their procedures, looking at even visiting their work site to see these procedures in use.
And by just real quick, by risk industries, you're talking about construction, tree trimming, people with height exposures, roofers, just things where, predominantly a lot of construction. That's where a lot of injury happens. But
yeah, I mean, like my brother's is in the steel erection industry, and not to pick on him, but he used to fire people before they hit the ground. That's what he would say. I'm sorry, if you fall off the building, you're fired before you hit the ground. And of course, that's a joke, but the seriousness of it is accidents occur. And, knowing what OSHA's requirements are for your industry is one thing. Actually applying them, and, in the case of a roofer or steel erector, we're talking about harnesses and being tied to the building just in case you fall, you're not falling, to the ground. And, obviously, somebody who adheres to those rules should see the benefits. Somebody who's not adhering to those rules, quite honestly, is subject to not being a part of our program. And they deserve higher prices if they aren't participating in those examples. So right from the beginning, we try to get a feel for what type of client we have. A great example is, one of our roofer questions is, how many floors do you go up? And all roofers are doing just homes. They're single story, 2-story max for a 2-story home. And then the underwriter goes to their website and they see this huge building that they're a picture on their website. So it looks like they're doing, 8-story, 10-story buildings and hanging off of scaffolding. And they're not doing that at all. But we call them out on it every single time because we're wanting to really get a feel for what is the work that you're doing.
yeah, and that's, I hate to say, Facebook and your websites, because there's so many business Facebook pages, tell underwriting so much more about a client than they need to know.
Exactly.
Oh, what kind of work do you do? And, I've literally gotten calls from underwriters that, hey, the lawn and landscape company you sent me that said they don't do tree trimming except from the ground. Well, there's a picture of them in a climbing stand that you would use for hunting, chainsawing a palm tree.
Yeah, or a picture of the guys on the roof without their harnesses on.
Yeah, so they cook themselves a lot.
Yeah,
when it comes to that.
But that's the education side of it. So not only do our risk management people educate them on what their requirements are, they'll educate them on where to get the right type of equipment, and then they'll literally schedule with them, hey, I'm going to be back out at your job site to make sure that you're actually using this equipment properly.
Yeah, depending on the client and their history, we have PEOs that will do this before there's even an acceptance
Correct.
of they will have it up front. Hey, we're going to come out. We need to see what you guys are doing to make sure that they're not doing, that they are wearing fall protection.
Right.
And, they're not really interested in fall protection just because OSHA says you have to. OSHA is Occupational Safety and Hazard Association that, for anybody that doesn't know that oversees, a lot of businesses and a lot of safety rules and regulations type of thing. But, and there's certain times where OSHA says you don't have to wear fall protection because of the pitch of a roof but accidents happen.
Right.
So they really, they're really preferring that you do that. But yes, that does happen up front for some clients, just based on when they're coming in and what information's collected. But then as part of being the PEO partner and wanting the best safety for these clients and keeping people injury free, some of the PEOs are very hands-on of going out to job sites. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a construction related thing. Yeah, they'll go out and make sure fall protection's used, but even just going into restaurants and looking at little things as far as, where are the knives on the walls, where do things open, where your slip hazards, where your corners that you can, are really going to wipe people out if they hit them type of thing.
Right. And then you're doing this, I don't want to say in a selfish way, but the PEOs are literally in the business of lowering the number of claims that occur. And if they can be proactive about it by seeing the hidden situations, and I laughed when you talked about the restaurants and the knives, because I actually remember a situation where the knives were right above the deck where the chef was ducking down to put the plate into the window, and if he ever, so he's literally ducking underneath the knives, and the safety guy's like, this can't do this. I
Right.
mean, he's like, no, I know they're there. Yeah, but the next guy doesn't, and that's a claim. So, yeah, it's all positive stuff that these guys do. They get a bad rap being safety risk management, but in most cases, we're trying to help our clients reduce the risk, which helps the PEO reduce their losses on claims.
Yeah, and they end up, with a net savings, better pricing over the course of time because, as you have those claims, which not saying that you can't have claims within or while you're in a relationship with a PEO, they still happen, but it's a win-win for everybody from a cost point of view from the client, general risk, but they were saying they come out and depending on the type of industry you are, they may just schedule something quarterly.
Yeah, I know one client we had. They had multiple accidents on their forklifts, and the safety basically came out, and none of the accidents were the exact same. But what they did realize is that there were people getting on forklifts and not getting enough training or enough understanding of the risks that are
Mhm.
associated with being on a forklift, and they just implemented willingly. The risk manager suggested that you take these people through a course online that the PEO was happy to provide.
Mhm.
So now anybody who gets on the forklift has at least gone through a OSHA based course with acknowledging that some of the pitfalls of operating a forklift. It may sound basic, but quite honestly, that's what clients need. They need that handheld taking them through. This is why you had more than two accidents. They're basically the same thing. They were not trained properly to realize whether it was speed or tilt or whatever that caused the accident.
Yeah, and the PEO has the resources there because of the industries that they cover to help. I mean, I've seen things as far as electrical cord safety, how to put them up, where they should be marked, taped down, etc. Ladder safety is a good one. Good one that's a good example that has tons of safety that everybody thinks about. Cell tower climbers. They've got fall protection. They've got three points of contact rules where you've got two hands and feet. You're tied off to everything, so that if and when you fall only as far as your rope that you're tied off on, instead of however many hundreds to thousands of feet. Well, the same injuries when you fall from 8 and 10 feet, they don't kill you.
Right.
When you fall from great heights, it's probably over with. and the claim kind of opens and closes really, instantaneously for the most part. But the same thing applies if you're just on a ladder 8 feet up in the ground, 8 feet off, and you fall, blow your back out, knee out, whatever it is, that can turn into hundreds of thousands of dollars in claims over something that, if there had been basic ladder safety training or something to that effect, that would that would come up.
And they do this for basically every job that's out there. I mean, I recall seeing one for clerical. Now, clerical's, sitting at your desk all day, and it's one of the lowest costs as far as work comp goes. But so they had, there was a training for clerical, and the vast majority of clerical claims that occur is bending over and opening up drawers for filing. And they, it sounds ridiculous, but they literally talked about, how to use your legs as opposed to bending over with your back, and how not to, hit your head and things along those lines. So the level of safety that can be explained to the employees out there, it doesn't matter what job you have, they're capable of doing it and helping.
Yeah, you really you can't assume they know anything.
Right.
You really have to baby step it as far as that goes.
Right.
Well, I think that does it for today. That's a little bit about on how the PEOs help out from a risk management and trying to keep people safe and keep costs low for everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the PEO Playbook podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the PEO Playbook, where we help business owners unlock the power of PEOs and take their team to the next level. This episode was proudly brought to you by Legacy Sales Engineering. If you're ready to simplify HR, scale your business, and put the right team behind you, visit staffbroker.net to get started with Staff Brokers today.